Hello everyone, Yas here from another episode of Azure Roundup. We have Ahmad Mozaffar with us again. This time we're going to talk about Blazor and Electron to be able to deliver a really great experience for those who want to use different type of applications as their day-to-day basis. Ahmad, take it over, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for hosting me again, Yas. It's a pleasure to be here. Right now we are one more time to talk about Blazor, but right now we have another cool topic with the Blazor, which is Electron and developing desktop application. Before we get started, if anyone joining us for the first time, I'm Ahmad Mozaffar. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and full stack .NET developer and cloud development in general, let's say, not only .NET. So this is what I do in my daily life, and this is why I'm here to share this some amazing things with you. So the topic of today is actually talking about delivering desktop applications that runs across different platforms from Windows, Mac OS, and Linux, and those kind of applications called Electron. We are actually using it every single day. I don't know if all the developers know about that, but Microsoft Teams is one of them, Visual Studio Code, and other big applications that maybe if you are not familiar with this concept before, you will be surprised. Oh wow, this is a real Electron app that's built with web. So we are here to talk more and go a little bit deeply with that and see a quick demo with how to do this with Blazor.
That's great, Ahmad. So, just a question before we start. Let's talk about why would someone prefer a Electron written app over something like a progressive web app?
Yeah, because progressive web app is just actually it's a little technology existing in the operating system or supported by all the modern ones that allows you to open this web page through your start menu, for example, or through your desktop. You just open up and it pops up in a separated window, but at the end it's a browser thing, and it's just like a piece of browser that's running separately. So it seems like a desktop app, and the functionalities of it it's able to communicate with some few APIs of the operating system that actually just the browser does. For example, sending notifications. But you're not able to execute some commands through the shell. You're not able to have a customized menu at the top, which is native. You are not able to communicate with the file system, for example, because at the end of the day, this is just an HTML that's running in the browser, which is in this restricted environment, let's say. So there is some big difference, let's say, between having an Electron app, which is at the end of the day, it's a desktop app that's capable to communicate with all the APIs that every OS provides, and with that, or PWA, which is simply like a little technology to provide you the web application that you open through the browser in a more easier way.
Yeah, take it away then. Share your screen and
okay, thanks.
And start the conversation.
Start first by sharing some of the slides that we have, and then we will move Visual Studio and see some things in action. So,
sounds great.
Okay, so here we go. Right now, today, as we have said, we are going to talk about Electron and Blazor. So let's see what we have on the agenda for today. First of all, we are going to discuss what Electron actually is. Then we will see how it's going to work. Then who is using Electron right now in the market, or let's say where is Electron right now or in our daily life. Then we will answer the question, should I go with Blazor server or should I go with Blazor WebAssembly for Electron? And the last things we are going to talk about pros and cons of Electron application that's actually being a desktop app that's being built with Electron. And the last thing we are going to move to Visual Studio and create a small app and see how this goes in action. So let's start by answering the first question, and actually, what is Electron? Electron is basically an open source framework developed and maintained by GitHub since 2013. And the main goal is to being able to deliver desktop application that runs across the different operating systems that we have right now in the market in an easy way, and actually by having a one code base that I don't have to have multiple teams, and I don't have to have this application to be written multiple times. And there is also another, it's not always a disadvantage, but sometimes it is, because every operating system has its own UI and UX. So while you are going with native app, you are restricted by what the operating system provides to you. So this is why you see a big difference between Visual Studio for Mac and Visual Studio for Windows. But that's not at all the case in the case of Visual Studio Code, right? You are just open the same UI, the same menu, the same stuff, the same flow, everything same. This is a great feature sometimes. So this was the goal, and actually it helped a lot because right now we have a lot of applications that runs across the platform, which actually was a little bit difficult to see many of apps running before that period. So this is in general about Electron, but what is Electron.net? Let's say Electron.net is actually big thing, let's say, from the community. Many thanks for them that they actually took the Electron JS that's being developed and they port that actually to .NET. So right now, as a .NET developer, we can leverage that. We don't have to be a JS developer or Node.js to be able to build this kind of awesome applications. So this is what Electron apps in general. And before we move to the next slide, if there is any questions, so we can upload them.
What's the in comparison, the Electron JS and the Electron.net, are they on the same feature set? Is Electron.net behind, or you know?
Yeah, basically, most probably they are the same. And like if there is some little missing things, I think they are on daily basis. They are bringing all the stuff. But if you want to build an application, almost all the things that you need, from dialog to the shell to the writing and reading files, notifications, they are all available for you actually in the Electron.net right now.
Great.
Okay, so let's take right now a quick look of how Electron actually works, or how Electron application actually work, because this is really interesting. How I can make a web application, but it runs on the desktop and it leverages the power of, or the APIs of the operating system. That's interesting. So actually, you know that web always consists of a client, which is the browser that renders the HTML that you see, and there is a server somewhere, and on the other side of the world, let's say, and then they communicate with each other through HTTP protocol. So then the idea said, okay, what if we bring the client, which is the browser, we already have it, and if we bring the server as well to put it there, and to let that sandboxed environment, which is that HTML or that piece of technology that runs in the browser, to communicate with this little server through that's written natively on the PC, like in this case it's Node.js, which is actually able to communicate with the OS, and it leverages then the power of the OS, and the client actually rendered that HTML, so we have that fancy UI, and all together could be a great piece. So actually that's great. So this is how it is. We have the client, the browser, we have a Node.js, which is responsible for the main process to the communication between managing those windows and communicating with the operating system. But in our case as well, we can have a Blazor. And why Blazor? Actually, many thanks to the .NET team, but everyone knows after .NET Core released, right now you can publish your app as a standalone, and you can simply run your ASP app just by simple command or by running an AXE app, and it's just self-hosted and it's running, right? And we can also publish it as a standalone application, so it's framework independent. You don't need to have a runtime, or you don't you don't need to reinstall some other things to be able to get your application up and running. So if you put all those things together in one box and then we ship it to the operating system, we can have a great piece of software that's functioning probably, right? This is actually how it works. We have the client, we have the Node.js, and we have, in our case, our Blazor application, and then all together is able to deliver this application. Before we move, just let's talk a little bit about this icon, which is famous for everyone. It's an icon of Chrome, but it's blue, right? Actually, this represents the Chromium, which is actually the engine of the Chrome browser, and this Chromium is an open source. So they leverage that power with Node.js, and in that case, as you can see, this is the final result, amazing box that has all those technologies together in one place. So this is the big advantage, but there is some little advantages for that. We are going to discuss them later.
So this Chromium is the exact same Chromium which new Microsoft Edge is built on top, right?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, it's the same that the browser and currently Microsoft Edge is built on top. So the other part of the process, let's go a little bit deeper of how it works. Every Electron application consists of a main process. As you can see, that's considered this pool as the main process, which actually runs, for example, by Node.js, which already have the ability, and they already written some code to communicate with the native APIs of the operating system. And then every window is a process itself. And this process consists of a Chromium browser. So each window is a browser itself. And it renders the UI that you see of the web within the same application. And you can consider somehow this is the server, and this UI connects with this server, and it does some of the magic that it has to do, and then it retrieves the result back. So all the windows communicates with this main process to be able to communicate with the operating system. So that's great, and this is the disadvantage as well. And this is why sometimes when you open your task manager and you open, for example, Microsoft Teams, and you see there is 10 or 12 process that's running for the same application. And this is why, because every process of those, or every UI is a totally independent process. There is a browser, and it's just running independently. So this is the main thing actually of Electron apps and how it works. But at the same time, this is the disadvantage. We're going to discuss this in a bit.
So apart from the memory consumption, is there any difference between the performance when it comes to a app which is running in Electron versus a native Windows or Mac OS application?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, there is a big difference, not only just a little bit. And because based on what you have seen, like to be able to deliver this application, we are mixing a lot of things together, and those are not too cheap for the memory, right? Especially when you're talking about Chromium, and it needs processing power, it needs memory as well. So in addition for that, the way it works by having multiple processes, it makes the application huge while it's running, even if it's doing nothing. Once you run it, it will take about 80 megabytes of the memory, which is not something preferable. But with the modern PCs, when the minimum, like right now, is the 16 gigabyte of RAM, okay, that's fine. And also from a performance-wise, when it works, it's a little bit costly as well. We can notice this with all the modern apps, from Slack to Teams to Skype, for example. Those, when they work, they need a little time, even if you have like a powerful PC, but that's fine. There is a lot of things to be initialized. And another thing that's costly is actually because when you are writing a C# code to run a Windows application like UWP or WPF, you are just writing the code, communicating with the APIs, and that's it. It's straightforward. So while in this case, it's not the case. The browser communicates with the main process. The main process translates that to use some like middleware in the middle to be able to communicate with the API that's written with C or C++. So there is a big workaround at the end to be able to deliver that result, but it's very satisfying, and it costs from one side, but it saves a lot from the other side. Okay, so right now, we already mentioned that. Who is using Electron actually right now in the market? Electron is simply everywhere. If you can visit this URL, you're going to see an endless list of applications that's using Electron right now. The biggest example, as you can see, there is Skype, Visual Studio Code itself, Slack, Microsoft Teams, Kraken, and there is many other development tools that you use in your daily life. For example, Azure Data Studio to communicate with your SQL databases or something like that. They are all actually, at the end of the day, Electron apps built with the same, with this technology. Kraken, which is my favorite Git client, it's also an Electron app built with the web technology. So the UI of your Windows application is not written, for example, with XAML for Windows. It's just written with HTML and CSS, which is something great.
So this makes sharing the code between your website and your native app a bit easier, right? Yeah,
actually, there is a very big part of this code being shared, and what's happening is actually just for the version that runs on web, you just lack some features. For example, you remove the communication with the file system because you cannot do that in the browser. But at the end of the day, it's 100% the same. The same UI, the same logic, you can just add. And we are going to see that actually in action right now, how this is going to work. So before we move to the demo and start see some real things, let's just take a quick look at what are the advantages and disadvantages of using the Electron application. I think we already mentioned some, but one of the biggest advantages is that you're going to write one code base that runs across all the platforms, which is actually the goal out of this, especially recently where every OS is just having a very separated, like they're not going united, they are just going every one of with their SDK in a different way. So this is a reason. Other reason is that every year the new SDKs of the native platforms are just getting developed, and sometimes something new and getting introduced, like what we have right now for Windows for like WinUI 3, which is actually something on top of UWP and WPF, while with Electron you just have to some web technologies and little things to know, and then you can build up the trans across all of them and avoid this headache. It's very easy to set up and get started. We're going to see that in just a few minutes. And it's HTML and CSS UI. Everyone is familiar with this. So we have a great support from the community because there is a huge number of web developers as well, and this is what you need. You don't need to be as specialized in Electron. You just have to be a good developer using the developer technologies available in the market, and you're just ready to go with Electron. And there is a bunch of third-party libraries available for all the different tasks that you want to do. For example, from image cropping, and this is just as a sample, and there is many other things that, and as I've mentioned before, in the HTML and CSS UI, there is UI components. You can find like Material UI, Microsoft Fluent UI, and hundreds of others available for you. Now, what are the disadvantages? As we have mentioned, the application is actually very big, or it's too much. This is one of the biggest disadvantages. And even if you have like a very simple application, you just install it, and the setup will be 125 megabyte, for example, and then when you run it, it will take 80 megabytes of the memory just to handle this, the most simple task that you want to do. And because of the size, because of all the components that are running together and the chaining of them to get this application, this actually costs out of the performance of this application, especially if you compare it to a native application. So those are actually the main disadvantages, but it's still, in many cases, it's a very great option to go with. And we are going to see some apps right now before we open Visual Studio and see how it works. Okay, so right now, let's, we have just one more thing before we move to the development. Should we go with Blazor Server or Blazor WebAssembly when we use it with Electron? Actually, the answer here is very simple. We should go with Blazor Server. The reason why is Blazor WebAssembly is very restricted, and it's just built to run in the browser. So just the things that are existing on the browser and nothing else. While Blazor Server, it's a traditional .NET application, or ASP application. So you have all the capabilities to do whatever you want. For example, writing and reading from the file system, and executing some commands and doing. It's just an exe application at the end running on the operating system, so you can take advantage of this. This is number one. You still have the components structure and architecture, which is so great to deliver the amazing UI. And the last thing is that the disadvantages of the latency of you need to be connected online are not existing any longer, because everything actually is on the client. So the server is on the client, so there is no latency. And because the server is also running on the client, there is no need to have an online connection to be able to communicate with this server. So, and the last thing is that Blazor Server is very easy to debug and deal with from Visual Studio if you compare it to WebAssembly. So the answer is to go directly with Blazor Server.
So okay. How about Blazor Desktop?
Blazor Desktop, you mean what's coming with the .NET MAUI?
Yeah.
Actually, that's a very big thing. It's still not released yet, and it's very promising right now. What exists from term of size of the performance of the application, but it's very modern, And also the other problem is that, which is something very important, which is the community support. Because right now, I think it has a big future and much better than Electron. This is what we have seen in the blog post that Microsoft shared when it comes to the performance and size. But when you are dealing with something totally new, it will take time, just like what Blazor is doing. This is now one of the disadvantages of Blazor, that still have a limited community. So if you one time run into some problem, the answer is not going to be directly there on the libraries. But I think it's a big thing, and it will have a better step than Electron. But for the time being, Electron is the booming thing in the market, and it's delivering some great, cool experiences. So let's move right now to some action, and I will share my different screen. So right now, I will go to my Visual Studio. It's already here up and running, and I will open this application, and then I will open another instance of Visual Studio, and we'll create an application from scratch. So to get started, basically, just all you have to do is to follow those simple steps. We'll click on Create New Project, and from over here, we are going to search for Blazor Server. Let's choose a Blazor Server app, click on Next. Then you can give it a name, our first. Let's click on Next. And I will choose from over here, 6. I'll click on Create.
I noticed you're using the 2022 version of the Visual Studio. For those of people who are using previous versions, would it be any different in terms of setup?
No. It's just exactly the same. No, nothing different. Because to be able to go ahead with Blazor and stuff, you need to be on Visual Studio 2019, and the difference is not that big actually. So this is our application, and actually, if we just go ahead and run it, it's that sample famous purple application that you see with every Blazor app, and we are going to run some commands and initialize some libraries, and it's going to run as a desktop application. So let's see how this is going to work. And so here we go, our traditional Blazor app. And it's just running in the browser very simply. Now let's see how we can make this application actually running on the desktop. So the first thing that you have to do, I will open the project in the File Explorer like this, and then I will open up my terminal, the CMD or the PowerShell if you are on Windows 10 or something like that. So the first thing we need is to install the Electron CLI to be able actually to deal with that. So the first thing, just all you have to do is to run this command. It's only one time just to set up, and then next time it's going to be available global across your application, so you don't need to install it every time. So .NET tool install -g, which means it's global, and it's Electron net.cli, just like this. And if we hit enter, it will say it's already installed for me. But in your case, you are just going to wait for a little second, and it's going to be available for you. So now let's go back to our application and go to Manage NuGet Packages and install Electron net.api. For that, it's going to be available over here, as you can see. And let's click on Install. Okay, let's accept that. Okay, that's great. Now it's installed. So if you open the Solution Explorer, as you can see, Blazor Server is a normal ASP.NET Core app. So we have this program.cs, which is the entry point of the application, as you can see here. So the thing that we should do over here is electron.net.api, and we should configure here web builder dot use Electron, and then we pass those arguments like that. Save it. Then go to startup, and here we have this configure method that goes from one pipeline to another. So the last thing is to actually open a window that's going to run this application. So what you have to do is, because it's asynchronous, we are going to run it in a separated task like that. Wait, Electron, set the namespace, dot window manager, dot create window async. So actually, that was very simple. This is all what you have to do from the application side. Now I will go back to the terminal, and I will just run a command called, once you install the Electron net.cli, you have right now a command called electronize. You can call it like that, and here we go. It shows everything's done. I'm electronizing. So you are going to notice that over here we have right now electron.manifest, which is responsible like the metadata of the project, available for you here, the desktop app. And if you go to properties, launch settings, you're going to see that there is a new profile actually has been added here, and it's executable directly. So we can click over here, and you can see that we can run it directly instead of IIS Express. So it could be run as a desktop app. So let's right now run it. I'm going to run it here from the CMD, and the command we should use is type electronize. First, let's use .NET build to build the application. Here we go. Our application has been built successfully. Now let's run electronize start. Like this. For the first time, it's going to take a little bit, because to install all the new packages, and then actually after that it's going to work. So in the meantime, what I'm going to do, I already have an application that's actually I'm currently working on, and it's a real application. It's not just a demo or something. So I would like to share that with you. Let me run it first in the browser. It's actually a time management application with a schedule and timetable. It's still in the early stages, but the main functionality is there. And thanks. Okay. So the same steps we have followed out there is already implemented here in the program.cs and startup.cs, and it's the package is already installed. So here we have to log in with my Microsoft account, and then because it's already using, okay, here we go. So as you can see, it's right now it's still very basic, and here we have a timetable, and you can manage some things, and here there is, you can add some tasks, for example. Okay. So it's added here. Now we need the ability to save that actually by clicking save, and I need to create a JSON file that has a list of my tasks. So the next time I open the application, they are available to me fully client side. So this application is already configured to use Electron. So let's run it as a desktop app and see how it's going to look like. So if we open File Explorer, like that, click on Open Windows Terminal, and start. Right now it should run very quickly because everything's set up. Then new packages are actually big, so they need always they take a good time to run. So oh, here we go. Our first application runs, and as you can see, here it is. It's the same app that you see in Chrome, but right now it's surrounded with the window frame, and here we have a menu. I think you're familiar with this from VS Code or GitHub for Desktop or whatever. And the same application, but actually it's right now it's a desktop app, and it could be delivered as an exe. And here is my other application. It just runs right now, and you can see that we can leverage this. There we go. Those are two Blazor symbol apps that we have run them in the browser, but they are actually existing here. So let me try to add something over here, and that functionality is not available on the browser if you click save. And I will type like study, for example. So now after I have initialized my schedule, I can simply click save. And you're going to notice the famous file picker in Windows, and it's just run from a Electron app or from a web app, which is actually something you cannot do through the browser. And I will type again my tasks. Now I'll click save. And then if I go to the desktop, I'm going to see that there is a JSON file over here, and open with, choose a file, and I'm going to pick then Notepad for now. And here we go. It has written this, study, the description, the color, and just saved it just like any WPF application when you create an open file dialog and you save, or save file dialog as well. So all of that is just available for you with this. What other things you can do? You can change the menu, you can send notifications, you can read file, you can execute shell commands. You can find all of that mentioned in the documentation of their account on GitHub. I'm going to go to the browser over here. Okay, sorry for that. Here we go. This is the Electron JS website, the formal website. Here you can find a list of all the type of applications available right now in the market. And if you go to docs, actually, even if you are on Electron JS, you can leverage the same documentation, but instead of the JS code, you can do it with C#. This is the goal, actually, the end goal of Electron.net. And if you visit their GitHub repository, you are going to see this is the source code of this magical invention. And then over here, you can see how to get started. You are going to see in the wiki different things. Those are the commands you need. And also, you can find the command to build your application and make it available on Windows, OS X, or Linux. It's actually that simple. And yeah, this is the repository. And then back to the starting point, it's in the end of the day Blazor app, and more, it's a web app. So you can bring a template. They have a very pretty application, add some desktop functionalities, run these two commands that you have seen, and it's a desktop app that could work 100% offline and available. You can connect to a SQLite database, and just like any functional desktop app.
That was great, Ahmed. I just have one more question, and we can wrap this up. What if somebody wanted to customize the menu of the Windows app or the Mac OS app or Linux window, the menu box? How would they do it? Can they do it?
You mean the comments over here?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely we can do that, and that's something very simple. So I will go over here, go to the startup.cs, then scroll down, and here we can, what you can do, for example, you can type bootstrap. We can create the menus first, menu items, new item. It's available in the entities, and then it's an array of menu item objects. Okay, I think it's not added, right? And over here, we can just create a menu item that has you have right now all the properties, like for example, the label, what's going to happen on a click, what's going to happen if you need an icon, if you need to specify a specific position, and you can also set a shortcut. So you can, from the keyboard, click Ctrl V, for example, to take some action. And we can have label, file, menu items, or the sub menu here. They are also an array of menu item, table, welcome, and click. This one, as you can see, it's taking an action, so we can make it async. Await Electron dot dialog dot show message box async hello from Electron. So this is what's going to happen when we click on that. And okay, let's say this is our sample menu, and at the end of the day we can type Electron dot add dot set menu, or it's not app, it's menu dot set application menu, and we just type menu items. It's like that. So now when we run the application, it's going to actually be overridden. Let's type bootstrap. Actually, we can have all this function at once in one place. We can take this piece of code from here to bring it over here. Then we can type await bootstrap. Okay, something like this. Then let's close this app. And let's close this app as well. And then I'm here on the timetable, which is this one over here. And let's do that again. And right now we should see a new menu, and just with one command it's doing something. So it's everything is super easy and straightforward. Yeah.
Really great stuff. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. For those of you who are watching, we'll put all of these links in the description below. So make sure to check these out and enjoy all the apps that are available. If you wanted to get started with Electron and Blazor, feel free to reach out to Ahmad. Ahmad has very active YouTube channel, which publishes YouTube videos regularly, and is also on Twitter.
Yeah, we already have a course about that covers around 10 topics in developing Electron apps. And here, this is our awesome menu. You can click welcome. You can see a native Windows message box. So, yeah. So, thanks again for hosting me. I hope you enjoyed this stuff, and you just took a look and understand some of the basic concepts of this technology. And hope to see you again with a new topic. And as you have mentioned, I'm always available on Twitter for any questions, and again, my GitHub repository is existing out there, my GitHub account, my YouTube channel, and yeah, this is it.
Thanks, Ahmed. We really enjoyed this session, and hopefully we'll see you in the future with other sessions as well. Thank you.
Same here. Yes. Thanks.
All right.
See you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.